But let's begin this morning with that defiant message from the Trump administration this morning, doubling down on the scale of the damage from the strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. In a very contentious press briefing this morning, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, reinforced the president's claim that Iran's nuclear sites were destroyed and went after critics who say otherwise. Listen.
President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history. And it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war.
I want to bring in CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Charlie, you were in that meeting. It struck me that Hegseth basically taking a page out of most Trump administration officials' playbook, which is when asked very tough questions, even from a former colleague at Fox, who is known to be one of the best, as you know, national security correspondents in the business, present company excluded, of course. He even attacked her. So what stood out to you besides that attacking of reporters as opposed to sort of answering the questions that you guys have?
Yeah, well, the secretary spent the first 10 minutes ripping into the media for what he called our hate for President Trump, and intentionally undermining the administration's line that the strikes obliterated, keeps using that word, the Iranian nuclear sites. And I have to repeat, those initial assessments, which they themselves warn are preliminary and low confidence, came from the Secretary's own Defense Department. They came from here, the Defense Intelligence Agency. He then listed a number of various assessments from like the IAEA, the Israelis, and the CIA, citing credible intelligence. When I pushed him further on that, this is what he had to say.
I was reading from the CIA director's statement, which came out last night. CIA, again, they do the BDA, they do the assessment. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates, it also goes on to say, new intelligence from historically reliable and accurate sources and methods. Now, you can imagine.
What is that?
You can imagine the CIA director is going to be very careful about how he articulates things of that sensitivity. Classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized. He's going to know things that you're not going to know, that the press isn't going to know. And he's reflecting that the sources he's seeing are highly credible.
So, I pushed him because this isn't just something that the press want to see. This is something that the American public wants to see. And it's also interesting that, a few days ago, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, who's also in that room, he said, look, it's too early to really give any kind of detail as to the damage here. He also said we don't do our own homework. You heard BDA, battle damage assessment, sometimes called bomb damage assessment, to figure out how successful the strikes were.
So, Charlie, I just wonder, and I'm sure there will be people who are watching this all play out who will also wonder this as well, which is, could we potentially see, I remember that moment when the President of the United States used a Sharpie to indicate the path of a hurricane or a storm that was not actually in the path that he was indicating. And all of a sudden you had the bureaucracy sort of going along with his assessment of that hurricane. Could we see potentially, I know these national security officials and defense officials and intelligence people are long-term civil servants, in other words, civil servants who've dedicated their lives to protecting this country and analyzing data. But could we potentially see where they sort of, the information that does eventually come out that is made public is more in lockstep with what the president says he believes happened, as opposed to what intelligence we actually decipher from on-the-ground reporting comes from? Does that make sense?
It does make sense because, Vlad, what we're seeing today is they're circling the wagons, right? We're hearing from Tulsi Gabbard, we're hearing from the CIA, the IDF have already piled in, giving more of an assessment of what happened. But we're going to have to see some sort of images. We've given a couple of images today that we've already seen at Fordow with the ventilation caps and where they were bombed. General Kane went through chapter and verse the number of bombs or MOPs that were used in the operation. He said they all went off. They all reached their target as planned. But what we don't know is how much damage was done there. And we're going to need to know that, because what the Defense Secretary initially referred to, that assessment that we've been reporting on, it's actually called a restrike report, because it's a bomb damage assessment to say, look, did this achieve the goal that we were hoping to achieve? And that happens in all military operations, big or small. If the idea was to take down a bridge, you do a bomb damage or a battle damage assessment. Say, did we take it down? And it goes from, mildly destroyed, severely damaged, mildly damaged to destroyed, and that's it. There's no obliterated in any of that language. However, that's what they have to determine, because ultimately, if it hasn't finished the job, then it may be considered that that job needs to be finished.
Yeah, and again, I'm not looking to suggest that the department would falsify information, but that they would just, as you say, circle the wagons and keep in line with what the president is suggesting. And how do we know? Because we don't actually have ourselves eyes on those nuclear facilities. Of course, people remember past incidents like the Gulf of Tonkin incident and others where the United States played loose with the facts. So the United States government did. So it's just sort of a curious thing that I'm wondering. Charlie D'Agata, always good to have you in those briefings to ensure that you keep the Secretary and others and hold their feet to the fire. We appreciate it as always, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Vlad.